I know your reputation, Mr. Maris, and I have nothing but respect for your efforts on behalf of the innocent.
Well, thank you, sir.
Now, not only an innocent person, but a whole community needs your help.
Mr. Mayor, what's your basis for saying that Mr. Schilling is innocent?
Well, Mr. Schilling's character. He'd be completely above such an act. He's clean, straightforward, fine example of honesty and integrity.
I admit I've never heard anything to contradict that.
He's the type man we need in our civic structure. And I feel certain there's more behind this matter than appears on the surface.
For instance?
Well, for instance, I think it's what might be termed a frame-up. I think some person, or group of persons, feels it necessary to prevent Aird Schilling from serving on the city council.
Well, if so, they must be a formidable group to resort to murder.
No question of it. That's why I'm trying to urge you to take over and get to the bottom of this thing.
Well, I'll do my best, sir.
Your best is good enough for me. Let me know if I can help.
Thank you, sir. I will.
I don't say Schilling is innocent, and I don't say he's guilty. I deal only in facts, Counselor, and you know that.
It's those facts I'm talking about. From what I've heard, they're not conclusive.
From what I know, they are. It's all there in the report. The nurse, Mrs. Warren, heard the argument between Schilling and Floyd Lawrence, and she heard Schilling threaten to kill him.
Did you find a gun?
Yes, it was in Schilling's hand when Mrs. Warren found him. Claimed it was tossed in the door after the shot.
What about the scandal Lawrence was going to publish about Mrs. Schilling?
I checked into it. No truth to it.
Then what's Schilling's motive for killing Lawrence?
Oh, I think he had plenty of motive, besides a sudden burst of anger. You know, things like this hit the headlines fast. Only nobody bothered to turn to page 10 the next day and find out it was nothing but a pack of lies.
You think that Schilling felt that the accusation, true or false, could have put him and Mrs. Schilling in a bad light with the public?
Don't you?
It could be, except for one thing.
What's that?
To get to the Schilling house, a person would have to have transportation or take about a 2-mile walk. According to this report, there was no car.
You're not going to fool me on that one, Counselor. If somebody drove him there, where is that person? No. I'll settle for Floyd Lawrence having walked to the scene of the crime.
When's the hearing?
Oh, well, it hasn't been set yet. I've got a couple of loose ends to tie up.
You sure do. Miss Lawrence?
Yes?
My name is Maris. I'm Mr. Schilling's attorney, and I'd like to ask you a few questions.
Oh, sure. Sure, come on in. Ask your question. Talk like a lawyer, Mr. Maris. Make it all seem right. And tell me about Aird Schilling. I want to know what kind of man solves his problems by killing people.
I don't believe Aird Schilling is a murderer, Miss Lawrence.
Oh, so that's how you're going to work it. You'll probably wear an old suit at the trial, a little frayed at the cuffs. Folks, you'll say, I believe in this man. He couldn't have done it. How do I know? Because I'm a simple, honest man myself. You can see that, can't you? How could you possibly not believe me? Here, take one of Floyd's old suits. He won't need it anymore.
Miss Lawrence, I can sympathize with your grief, but I ask you to consider one thing. If the wrong man dies for your brother's murder, it'll be you, not I, that makes murder seem right. Is that what you want?
Sure. Sure, why not kill everybody? You and Mr. Schilling and all the big, important people. Maybe little guys like Floyd will have a chance in this world.
And then when it's too late, when Aird Schilling is dead, when someone proves there's a third man, smug and safe, laughing at how cheap life is...
Then I'll cry, Mr. Maris. Then. Not now.
Don't you see? Nothing you could provide in the way of evidence could do anything but strengthen the case against Schilling if he's guilty.
All right. All right, Mr. Maris, I'll help you. I'll answer your questions if you answer one of mine. As far as I'm concerned, it's over. Floyd's dead, and questions aren't going to bring him back. But there's one thing I'd like to know. Floyd was no angel, but he didn't kill people. And I want to know why he had to die.
Then we're looking for the same answer, Miss Lawrence, so let's help each other. Now, you say your brother was no angel. Does that mean he'd been in trouble with the police?
It means that he was arrested a couple of times. It does not mean that he was a criminal.
On the night that he was killed, did he say that he was going to see Mr. Schilling? What his purpose was? Who sent him?
No. The police asked me all these things.
I know that, Miss Lawrence, but I've got to find some connection between Floyd and Mr. Schilling. Now, wait a minute. Did you go through his clothes?
No, and I don't want to. Have you ever gone through the belongings of a dead brother, Mr. Maris?
I'll help you. I'll go through his clothes and personal effects. If you'll make out a list of everyone that Floyd knew, socially or otherwise.
There'll be a lot of people he knew that I don't.
Just give me the ones that you know. It's worth a try, isn't it?
Well, I think we've got a bite, Lieutenant.
Really? What's all this?
List of the people that Ed Schilling and Floyd Lawrence knew. A respected man in public office and a small-time crook. People that met once in their lives. Hardly possible they travel in the same circles.
All right, Herb, what's the point?
The point is that Schilling and Lawrence did have something in common, a mutual acquaintance. Only one name appears on both of these lists, Fred Callan. I found Callan's name in one of Lawrence's suits and his address.
You know this person?
No, but I'm going to ask Schilling.
All right, I'll check in the file, see what we have on him. Let me know what Schilling has to say.
Right.
Now, there's a Fred Callan on your list. Who is he?
He's a contractor, new one in town. Bad reputation.
What's your connection with him?
Well, I'm a member of the City Planning Commission. I sat in on the acceptance of bids for the new Civic Center.
Well, that's a multi-million-dollar job.
That's right. I happen to know that Callan has been mixed up in scandals in other cities. His technique is to bid very low, then cheat on the material. 2 coats of paint instead of 3, 1-inch pipes where the specifications call for 1.5. Well, he manages to satisfy the requirements of the building code, and that's about all.
Did you take any action against him?
Yes, but I was overruled. The law states that any licensed contractor is eligible to enter a bid.
Any licensed contractor is an eligible contractor?
Yes, and if the bid is low, that contractor gets the job, providing he's financially responsible.
Do you think Callan is financially responsible?
Not for a job that size.
I see. Well, thanks. I'll talk to you later. Mr. Callan?
Yes?
My name is Maris. I'm the attorney for Mr. Schilling in the case of the murder of Lloyd Lawrence.
What's that got to do with me?
Well, I thought you could tell me something about Lawrence.
How can I tell you anything about him? I don't even know the man.
You've never met him? Never seen him? Don't know him at all?
That's right. Never heard of him.
Mr. Callan, you have an unlisted phone number in your house, haven't you?
Yes?
The night Lawrence was killed, it was found in his possession. How do you explain that?
Look, Mr. Lawyer,
Maris is the name.
Mr. Maris, I told you I don't know Floyd Lawrence. I'm a businessman, and I have lots of friends. There's any number of people who could have that number. Maybe somebody called him and gave him my number and told him to phone me and ask for a job. But I don't know the man, and that's all there is to it.
I see. Well, thanks for your help, Mr. Callan. I appreciate it. But I'm afraid that's not going to be all there is to it.
Weston. Oh, hello, Counselor. How'd you make out?
Callan disclaims all knowledge of Lawrence, but I'm sure he's lying. In the first place, he almost jumped out of his skin when I mentioned Lawrence's name. Then I called him Lloyd Lawrence. But when Callan mentioned Lawrence's name later, he used his right name, Floyd.
Now, listen, Herb, I've got something for you, too. There's a couple of big-time hoods in town by the name of Mark Havens and Hatcheck Smith. They got records as long as your arm. They're loaded with money, and they're trying to crash into legitimate business. One of their most frequent visitors recently has been none other than our friend, Mr. Callan.
Beginning to look like a cozy little setup.
Could be that no local bank would finance it, even with a big bid in his pocket.
But the chances are that Havens and Smith could and will. Okay. Oh, hi.
Havens, we got nothing but trouble.
What's the matter?
Look, we're in a jam. That lawyer.
What lawyer? What are you talking about?
He said his name was Maris. Look, he's Schilling's lawyer. He's got me hooked up with Floyd Lawrence.
Well, what did he say?
He said they found my name and private number in Lawrence's pocket.
This could mess up $1 million deal.
And mix us up with a murder rap.
You mean mix you up with a murder rap? Look, I didn't ask you to kill Lawrence.
You want to try to convince the police of that, Callan?
Wait a minute.
What?
This lawyer say when and where he found your phone number?
Yeah, they found it in his pocket after he'd been killed.
He's lying. I had Lawrence empty his pockets before he went into Schilling's house.
Oh?
What's his lawyer's name?
Said his name was Maris.
I'll look him up. Smith, see if you can find out whether or not the police know about the phone number. If they don't, we'll have to arrange to keep Maris quiet, one way or another.
I not only had to convince Charlotte Lawrence, but trust that she'd be able to play her part, and that we would succeed in forcing Callan's hand. And so, Mr. Callan, I've advised my client, Miss Lawrence, to demand the money that you promised her brother for calling on Mr. Schilling the night of the murder.
Now, look, I've told you, and I'll tell her. I don't know any Floyd Lawrence.
Oh, come now, Mr. Callan. Floyd told his sister where he was going that night and what he was going to do.
He was going to try to frighten Mr. Schilling into dropping out of the office of councilman.
But Floyd had no idea he was going to be killed, either by Mr. Havens, Mr. Smith, or by yourself.
Now, look, Havens and Smith, I can explain.
I've been doing a little checking up on you, Mr. Callan. You're very friendly with Mr. Havens and Mr. Smith.
Well, Havens and Smith, we were talking about building a hotel.
I doubt that. I think they're backing you in your probable low bid for the Civic Center contract. And Mr. Schilling is the main obstacle to the success of that venture.
So you killed my brother and put the blame on Mr. Schilling.
Oh, now, look, I can
My
assure...
client, Miss Lawrence, has sustained a great personal tragedy in the loss of her brother. She feels that $50,000 would make it a little easier for her to bear that tragedy. Don't bother to answer right now, Mr. Callan. Just think it over. We'll be in touch with you. Miss Lawrence.
Hello?
Havens, that lawyer was just here with Lawrence's sister. He wants $50,000 not to tell what he knows. And he knows just about everything.
I don't know what you're talking about, my friend. You must have a wrong number. That fool Callan. Talking like that on the telephone.
Well, what goes?
Maris is apparently trying to hold us up for $50,000.
So?
So I'll call his office and find out where he is. We'll have a little talk with him. Somewhere private.
Operator, give me the police department.
Nothing has ever hurt me as much as having to tell the truth about what happened that night. I'm really very fond of Mr. and Mrs. Schilling.
I'm sure of that.
I couldn't imagine either of them being dishonest, but I was at my wit's end. The police were pounding at me, and I didn't know what to do. So I finally told them exactly what happened that night.
Naturally.
Poor Mr. Schilling. What an awful thing to happen.
Hey, that must be Maris's car. We'll wait until he leaves.
It's hard to know what to do.
Don't worry, Mrs. Warren. I'm sure everything's going to be all right.
When we're sure he's alone and it's not a trap, we'll take him.
You Herbert Maris?
None of your business who I am. Your friend's guilty of reckless driving. We could both have been killed.
Now, take it easy, Mr. Maris. We wouldn't want anything to happen to you. At least not that we had a chance to talk things over.
Who are you?
I'll introduce myself at the right time. Just follow that car a while, and everything will work out all right. Get out here.
Put that gun away. Well, Mr. Maris is a sensible man. He's not going to risk picking up a few bullet holes. Are you? Well, especially when you can pick up a bundle of change instead.
Tell me more.
Well, what you're doing, Mr. Maris, could be considered blackmail if it were taken to court.
You consider seeking legitimate damages from my client blackmail?
But there are no legitimate damages due. You're trying to swindle Mr. Callan out of $50,000. Now, we don't like to see an honest man like Mr. Callan taken advantage of.
Someone killed my client's brother, and I believe that someone was Mr. Callan.
We're wasting our time with this gentleman. There's no way in the world he can prove that Callan was mixed up in the murder of Floyd Lawrence.
I can come pretty close to it.
Keep talking.
Well, gentlemen, I have a witness who will swear he saw Floyd Lawrence meet Mr. Callan, get into Callan's car, and drive off with him about 45 minutes before the murder. Want to hear the rest of it?
Well, go on.
Between the testimony of Floyd's sister and my witness, I can convince a jury that if Callan didn't commit the murder, he knows who did. I also believe I can convince a jury Callan's backers in the Civic Center project were two gentlemen by the name of Mr. Haven and Mr. Smith. Now, it's a well-known fact that Mr. Schilling was completely opposed to Mr. Callan getting the contract, which provides an excellent motive for these three gentlemen to try to prevent Mr. Schilling from interfering with their plans. Any comment?
We'd like to think about this for a minute. Oh, do you mind?
Help yourself. I can wait.
Mr. Maris, we've decided on a course of action.
We think you know too much.
And are likely to do us considerable damage, no matter how much money we give you. So there's only one thing left to do.
Want to guess what it is, Mr. Maris?
If you're planning on a little target practice, you'd better forget it. The police will be here any minute.
Oh, come, Mr. Maris. We made sure you were alone and not being followed before we picked you up.
And we made sure we weren't followed when we took the turnoff.
Seems to me I hear a car coming. Maybe you'd better check.
I'll take a look. Let's get out of here.
All right, get out of there with your hands up. Put him on the side of the car. Risk him.
Officer, I demand you arrest this man. He's trying to blackmail us.
Really? Yes, I'll bet he was.
I didn't think you'd ever get here.
Well, 5 minutes, Counselor. 5 minutes from the time your car stopped. That was the deal.
This is high-handed treatment, officer. You're making a bad mistake.
No mistake this time, Havens. We just got a call from headquarters. Callens walked in there and signed a full confession. He admitted driving Floyd Lawrence to Schilling's place, and he swears that you, Smith, fired the shot that killed him.
We wish to consult our attorney.
Really? Well, that's your right.
Officer, I'm a curious man. I'd like to ask one question.
Sure, go ahead.
How'd you find it?
Show him, Herb.
This little device is known as an oscillator. It sent out radio signals to the squad car. So although Lieutenant Weston was never in sight, he was never more than 5 minutes?
5 minutes.
He was never more than 5 minutes away. Between us, it was a long 5 minutes.